Frank Washington today. So we'll I put together a short little video, some of the fun times that we have with Frank here on the show. And if all goes well, I can make that happen. We'll do a share video, share the screen. Where is it? Where did Frank go? Ah, can you hear him?
Gentlemen, how you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Just trying to fight off this cold that, coming up when I was a young man, I had heated seats. We called them coats.
And when I say, leave that thing off. And when Frank is definitely one of the premier journalists and writers out there in the marketplace. You can find him in Ad Age. He's done some articles for Ebony, for Fortune magazine, the New York Times newspaper, the Times magazine, African American on Wheels. He was one of the journalists that helped Randy get that publication off the ground. Frank's had publications or articles in the Detroit News. He's covered politics. He's covered civil rights. He's been on the Today Show, Good Morning America. His crowning jewel has been one of the founding panelists for the show, AutoNetwork Report. I'd like to know, what got you interested in being a journalist or writer in the first place?
It was an equation, actually. I had gone back to I had gone to school a couple of times. Couldn't find my way, and after a semester quit. So, I told myself, well, if I can go back to school and get 2 semesters, back to back, I could finish school. And one of the things, the equation I worked out was that I wanted to do something that I didn't do the same thing every day. I wanted to do something that I could do it wherever I was. And the third thing was I wanted to do something that paid well. And the bottom line of it is, I tell people all the time, 2 out of 3 wasn't bad. My first paying job was in college. I was a editor at the school newspaper, and I got paid. My bureau chief here brought me into her office, and I mean, this is a quote. She says, "But I think automotive executives are a bunch of sexist pigs, and I do not want to be bothered with them. So you do it, And that's how I started covering the industry. A few months before that, they had put an eviction notice on my door, and that's been at least 30 years, and at least 1 million, maybe I'd say 1 to 2 million words. But I fooled them again. As we speak, I've got like 100 I haven't counted it all, but I've got certainly more than 100,000 words. I'd say 120, 30,000 words on the book I'm writing. And I have not received a dime. Book. 6 weeks. Yeah, I'll come back in 6 weeks now. The book is about how the auto industry lifted tens of thousands of Black families into the middle class. I remember when I was hired by Newsweek, they said, gee, I went through this whole series of interviews with different editors, writers, this whole kind of thing. And I think chief of correspondence called. He said, well, we like you. We want to bring you in as a full correspondent. Okay. So not a reporter, not this, not that, a full correspondent. That's what they said to me. But the spot's in Detroit. And I could call up Coleman Young. And we wouldn't have had tea, at his house. Basically, communication hasn't changed since the Stone Age. It really hasn't. Communication is words and pictures. If you know of a different way of communicating, I'd like to hear about it. The thing that changes is the delivery system. The market is moving too fast for executives. I mean, forgive my not so much language, but the market got caught with his pants down. I have a really a vintage Chrysler Sebring convertible.
What are some of the things that they have to do to prepare themselves?
Specialize, like anything else. But because the auto industry is not a blob. What you can't do is just say I want to cover the car industry and let that lay there.
I may not tell you that, but I've learned a lot from you over the years.
Well, you never tell me that.
Well, I'm telling you now. The world can hear it. And I appreciate you spending time on the show all these years. And I always enjoy when you join us. You always bring a different perspective to the conversation. So
thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're muted.
If you didn't want me to talk to me, I don't understand why you treat me this way. But as long as we're live and it's live TV, Joe, what do you do? Because see, they didn't send me any background.
Any info to send you.
That's not your responsibility.
That's my fault.
Responsibility is.
Live, and as Frank says, please buckle up and don't scream and drive.
That's it.
That's for our friend Frank. You guys there? What did I do?
We're here.
We're here. We're
Oh,
here.
you're just
Quiet.
pondering. Yeah, I started to wear my shades because as many times as I watched that,
I'm appreciating it.
I was getting
how many
teary-eyed. But as you all can see, Frank was, as I always say, if you knew Frank, he could be Frank.
Well, I mean, if it doesn't move you, you have no say.
Yeah, he was. He's special to all of us. And as you can see, it was a good thing that last year we honored Frank for Black History Month. So a lot of that came from that show, as well as you could see from some of the other shows that we've had over time. And you could kind of watch as Frank was unfortunately getting sicker. All right, Dave, let me hear that laugh that you have in all those shots.
Well, yeah, I should have asked before that tribute, Roosevelt. That was very nicely done. But
Thank you.
I was going to say this wouldn't be in the form of a eulogy, but if there's, as I've expressed to you,
a celebration. We're going to celebrate.
Right.
Go ahead.
And as I've expressed to you in an email, I didn't know Frank that well. I had known him for a number of years, but I can't imagine a person that was easier to be comfortable with.
Right.
Than Frank Washington. He always polite, truly kind of put the gentle into gentleman when you encountered him on a press trip or obviously via something like this. And obviously had a wit about him. But generally speaking, I just saw the guy as one very self-centered individual. And and not self-centered in that guise, but just all unto himself, open to conversation or whomever might be with him. But for all intents and purposes, had a great sense of self. And that's something that, I could work on every day. So anyway, neat role model for those of us looking for one.
Yeah, Frank was the kind of person that when you met him, you felt like you'd known him for a long time, and he felt like a glove. He was comfortable and easy to get along with. A lot of people said the first time they met Frank, he always had that smile.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, he could be tested now, because if you go back to some of the shows that we had, he would easily challenge us, especially me. But it was fun. It was all in fun. Who was that?
That's me. That's me in my life over here. Yes. No, he paved the way. I would not be here without him paving the way. So grateful.
Great. You there, Greg? Oh, Greg's having some technical issues. Chris.
Well, I like to say that, Frank used to challenge me on the shows as well, but that wouldn't be true because he usually agreed with me on the show, unlike Roosevelt. Yeah, I remember the first time I met Frank. Oh, gosh, it was when I was just getting started with the media stuff. And you guys may know a very close and dear friend of mine from the industry. Actually, she's not in the industry anymore. Her name is Nikedra Frederick. She used to work with General Motors. And so at the time, she, obviously was very good friends with Frank. And I remember that Frank had come into Atlanta, had a layover or something, and she was meeting up with him. And she was like, "Hey, Chris, there's somebody I think you need to meet. You need to come with me and or meet us, wherever. And just you need to meet this person. He's a really good guy in the industry, and just, very influential, knows everything, been doing it forever. And you just need somebody you need to meet." So I drove out there that evening, and met up with them. And it was just a nice conversation. He had some dinner. I don't think I ate anything at that. I think I just showed up or what have you. But it was just he was very relaxed, very friendly, all that stuff. And again, I had never met this guy before, and I'm just randomly showing up to a meeting of two friends, but he was very accepting and polite and kind and all that stuff. And then eventually I got to know Frank better, and the two personalities came out. But although he didn't necessarily hide any of that during that first meeting either, though. I noticed, you got a taste of who Frank was the moment that you meet him. Even in a casual setting where you're not necessarily old friends at the time, but he still was Frank. There were still glimpses of Frank, and then I got to really know him over the years. And it's just there honestly isn't even any more to that story. It was just that was just one of the moments that I truly remember, though, was being invited to meet this person, somebody I had to meet in the industry, and all that stuff. And like I said, it was just a layover that he had in Atlanta one evening, and that was the very first time that I met him.
Don, I don't know whether you had an opportunity to meet Frank. Did you?
No, I haven't, but I always wanted to. I remember I was watching your show and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy is so cool. Like, I would really like to meet him." Like the entire show, I laughed because he was like cracking jokes and saying snarky stuff. And it was like so funny to me. But then it's like I read up on him and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy he basically is a legend." So yeah. I really wanted to meet him and I'm sad that I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Greg, you back?
I think he was back, then he's gone again.
Yeah.
We gotta get that resolved. You got anything else to say, Tia?
Legend. We were talking about it earlier when we read through the note of what we were going to do today. We were like, legend, okay? Mm-hmm. We're both new. And when you sit in the space with other legends, which y'all already know that, but it's humbling, for us. We learned so much just from being in the space with y'all and with Frank, just where even the language, how to communicate, how to be yourself in the midst of an industry that maybe might want you to conform into a certain path. It's
No, Frank didn't conform.
No. The first time I seen him, he was on the camera with a robe on, and I was like, I want to be like him when I grow up. You know, like man.
Well, I hate we can't get Greg in. Try again, Greg.
I bet he's working on it. I bet the computer's just not allowing it.
Yeah,
You
his connection is not working today of all days.
Greg, can I ask Chris a question?
Go ahead.
Chris, did Frank actually agree with you, or was this at the point where he wasn't able to hear you?
He actually agreed with me. There were moments when he'd be like, I agree with Chris. Or like Chris said, see, there were moments. I mean, I'm not saying it was all
Where
the time.
is that bust? Okay, there was the bust.
No, I was at the Detroit Auto Show years ago, and back then General Motors would have an event just for minority journalists, and they've been doing it for years, and I would never get an invite. So I was in the hotel, and I was talking to Frank, and I was telling him about, well, he said he was going to the event because they would invite him every year. He said, come on, let's go. So he comes over and picks me up. And in the video, you know, he said he had the old Chrysler vintage Sebring. I don't remember what he had back then, but it was older than that old Chrysler Sebring. And as you know, back in the day when we went to Detroit Auto Show, it was in the middle of winter with snow everywhere. Right. So we walk outside, and Frank said, well, excuse me, I'm looking for a press car. Frank's in his hoopty. I call it a hoopty. So we went driving along in the snow, sliding all over the place, but he did get us to the event. But that was my first and only one that I went to. And we laugh about that, you know, again, laugh about it all the time. Greg keeps moving, but we don't hear anything.
Oh, he's back.
Greg's teasing.
Well, can you hear me now? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Go ahead.
We can hear
Can you
you.
hear me at all? Okay.
Kill your camera and just let your video come through.
I would never tease you. Always please. Oh, Frank.
Kill your camera, Greg, and just there you go. That didn't work either. Go ahead.
For some reason, this system does not.
Gone again. We're gonna have to get some comments from Greg and dub them in. But anyway, I just wanted to take the time, like I said.
Well, watching.
Greg, if you type them in the comments, I'll read it.
You can't type that fast.
Can he call in with his phone? Maybe that might help.
Well, moving right along. I just wanted to take today, since we couldn't have a show yesterday because of travel, to again on our friend Frank Washington. It's been a pleasure over the years, and like I said, I learned a lot from Frank. We've had many days of laughter, and as you know, if you watch any of the shows, all of us, rarely are we serious about what we say or do on the show, but we provide good information in a humorous fashion. And Frank was one of those that, as Chris said, and as Dave said, Frank could be Frank. And he didn't.
I think Greg is back.
No, he keeps going in and out. But Frank was the type of person, you know, if he agreed with what you said, he will agree. If he disagreed, he would say, well, if I could possibly say, or if I could intervene. Well, I think all of you who are watching this live show, I want to thank you for watching the show. Thank those who are watching the replay. I think you should go back and just do a search for Frank Washington. And I think Frank's last show was show number, I believe, 389, and this is show number 395. So you can
Can I read Greg's comments before you hang up?
Oh, I will, but before, I don't want to do the math to see how many years that is, but that's been quite a while. And I knew him before we started the show, but like I said in the video, he's one of the first people that I asked to come on the show, and he did, and he's been there up until the end. But go ahead, Tia.
Greg says, I miss Frank, and we met at a Ford event in California. We found we had many mutual friends. He was a great mentor.
Great.
In big capital letters is what he wrote.
Great. Well, we won't continue the show. We'll end it there. And as Frank always said, and I'll say it for the last time, buckle up and don't stream and drive. See you guys next time. Thanks for taking the time.
See y'all.
Bye-bye.